I love nature. I love everything about it. I love the snow. I love the trees.
I don't like snow. I want trees. I want green. I want Yedora, Grave Gardener. Yedora, Grave Gardener, 4 and a green, a 5 mana, 5/5, legendary creature Treefolk Druid with whenever another non-token creature you control dies, you may return it to the battlefield face down under its owner's control. It is a forest land. It has no other types and abilities. This doesn't mean that they have the title forests, but it does mean that they can tap for mana by the nature of just having the type forest. So what can we do with a card like this to make our opponents scared of the trees? Show me life and limb. For 3 and a green, you get an enchantment that essentially says all forests and all saplings are one or the other. They're 1/1s that are still forests. This makes every single land that we have that is a forest a creature. What can we do with creatures? Well, we can do what green does best and steal abilities that other colors are supposed to do but do it better. So we'll sacrifice these forests and kill them in many different ways, creating immense value for ourselves and making sure that we can keep the board clear of any flying threats to get every single land out of our deck and many other super haha funny things that our opponents will totally love us for. Welcome to the Infinite Combo Zone. And if you thought we had to pay for any of this, you're wrong. Zuran Orb, a 0 mana artifact that says sacrifice a land, gain 2 life. We can sacrifice these face down forests, and since they are non-token creatures, they come back in face down as a forest, as a land creature that we can sacrifice again to bring it back in face down as a land creature. You see where I'm going? Super exploitable. Most of the things that make our lands into creatures are enchantments, with one exception, but when we get those enchantments, we have essentially infinite combo potential with most of the other deck that's built into here. So we're gonna have cards like Commune with the Gods. 1 and a green, sorcery. Reveal the top 5 cards of your library. You may put an enchantment or creature card from among them and put it into your hand, put the rest into your graveyard. We don't mind that things are going to our graveyard. In all honesty, there's ways that we can get them out of the graveyard. Things like Den Protector, but don't talk about Den Protector yet. We can get things out of our graveyard in the future. For now, we just want to get the enchantments that make our lands into creatures. Let's do some landfall.
I was gonna say, what do you do with all those lands?
I do a lot with all those lands. 2 in the green creature. Human what?
Elf, Artificer, Druid.
That's awesome. I'm gonna remember like none of those. Not only are we going to be getting all these lands and making them into creatures and all these enchantments that get our creature lands to do fun things, we can also use the land drops because they're entering in as lands. So we'll get things like Rampaging Baloths. You know what it does. But what about Architect of the Untamed? For 2 and a green, you get a creature. Elf. Artificer Druid. I wish I could do this in one take. Architect of the Untamed. For 2 and a green, you get a creature. Elf, Artificer, Druid. Got it. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, you get an energy. But then you can pay 6 energy. What is it? 8. You can pay 8 energy to get a 6/6 onto the battlefield. You can save up all the energy you want, and then you can just pay it out. This is beneficial because you can get them when you want them, and if you can save up for it knowing like a board wipe is coming, you can let it die and then bring it back and then have all the energy in reserves. That's why I think it's a little bit better of a Rampaging Baloths, if you're gonna have as many land drops as we're gonna have here. Retreat to Khazan-dû. Enchantment for 2 and a green that has landfall. Either you can put a 1/1 counter on target creature you control, or just gain 2 life. So it's the opposite of Zuran Orb. You have to have the sack outlet, but instead you gain 2 life, or you can buff up a creature to some insane number. You know, arbitrarily large. I know throughout this video I'm saying infinite. In reality, we all know, you know, I know, he knows, everybody knows. This isn't really infinite. If it were truly infinite, then we would lock out the game. So this is just as big as you want, and it's arbitrary.
Exclusive to going big because you can go wide.
Oh yeah, my cameraman is right. You see, Gutter Grime is also an enchantment for 5 and a green, yeah?
4 and a green.
That's closer. 4 and a green, you can get an enchantment with whenever a non-token creature you control dies, put a slime counter on Gutter Grime, and then create an XX ooze where X is the number of slime counters on Gutter Grime. You don't need to wait long. If you're blocking with your lands like you should be, like a good person, this can still get out of hand because then you can start blocking with your tokens, saving your lands for when you need it. You won't necessarily always have Yedora out, but when you do, you have infinite blockers that are going to make like infinitely larger tokens. And you can do that at instant speed if you end up finding a sack outlet. Or you can do some funny shenanigans with like Embodiment of Insight. Normally this would just be good for any land creatures deck because it's a 4 into green for a creature elemental that has vigilance and gives your land creatures vigilance. And on landfall you can turn one of your lands to a 3/2 elemental, 3/3 elemental, but with haste. That normally would just be kind of okay. Without any of our creature granters, this still works beautifully. Because even if all we have is Embodiment of Insight, we can have a land enter with haste, tap it for a mana, sacrifice it to something like Zuran Orb, and then Yedora will return it back to the battlefield as a land. And then it is a creature that has haste. Tap it for the mana, sacrifice it, infinite mana, infinite sacks. That's even if you don't have things like Life and Limb. Or we can do Perilous Forays. I believe that's what it's called. Forays? Forays? Okay. My associate has told me it is Forays. Perilous Forays, 3 green for an enchantment. You can pay 1 generic, sacrifice a creature, and then you can search your library for a basic land, put it onto the battlefield tapped, and shuffle your library. You don't need me to tell you how amazingly good this is. With Embodiment of Insight, you essentially just empty your library of all of your lands, and you get your landfall triggers out of it.
Ah, yes.
The other part of this deck that's really fun. This whole deck is super cool. That's why I love it. But it is really combo-y. So like you essentially win by saying, haha, I'm done.
I didn't know green was becoming red.
Green is always going to become red. Always. And hell, even if somebody were to like hit me for all the creatures, it's not doing an infinite with like infinite tokens like some do, unless you did like the beasts or the Baloths. It's just infinite in the stack of like triggers. It's a aristocrats infinite, which is the coolest thing to me. That green can do this well, and that almost nobody plays this deck. This whole deck costs less than $30. I couldn't do 50 cents or less per card in this one because obviously just Life and Limb and other stuff like that costs a few bucks alone. But if Yedora goes away, what's gonna happen? They're gonna board wipe and you will be mercilessly left without any lands on the battlefield. That's why we also have things like Splendid Reclamation, because after just 3 turns of rebuilding your mana base, you can just get all the lands back out of your graveyard and not have to worry about much of what's going on. But if your lands end up going away, you have a few other options that can get them out of your grave, things to play out of your grave. Don't worry about that. If you find that there's more that you're going to need, you can also put in things like Kamal's Will is 3 into green for an instant, that if you have your commander, you can choose both, but either you can give all your lands, make them into creatures with indestructible haste, yada yada yada, or you can just make all your creatures bite a creature. Not worrying about that right now, because we're going to get into Den Protector. For 1 in a green, you can get a creature, Human Warrior, with Megamorph, meaning you can cast it for 3 mana, face down, like typeless, nameless morph creature that is a 2/2, and then at any point you can pay 1 in a green to turn it over and Megamorph it, putting a 1/1 counter on it. At base, it is a 2/1 with creature's power less than Den Protector can't block it, and also the important one, when it's turned face up, you may return target card from your graveyard to your hand. This is why I say don't worry about things getting removed on your board, because things like Den Protector can get a lot of stuff out of your graveyard. Here's the funny thing to know. With Yedora, it turns into a face down card. Even without it being a creature, you can always pay the 1 in a green to flip it over, even if it's just sitting as a forest. What's next?
What if it's stuck face down?
I love that. This is why you're here. Or you could use things like Quirion Ranger to return a forest to your hand and untap target creature. We don't have a lot of creatures that tap to do anything, so don't worry about that. But if you really wanted to, you could use a forest to untap a forest creature and tap it again for mana. You get to get whatever that was face down back in your hand to cast it again. So if unfortunately your board gets wiped with Yedora, everything's going to become a face down creature. Throw 1 Quirion Ranger down, and then you can return it to your hand and cast it again for whatever you want. Other than that, we have a few main things that Yedora is going to need to get. So Autumn's Veil is a card that has 1 green instant. Spells you control can't be countered by blue or black spells this turn, and also Shroud from blue and black. Or we can do Royal Treatment. For a green, you get an instant that gives target creature hexproof until end of turn, and then it also gives it a Royal Roll token, meaning it's enchanted by an aura that says it has Ward 1 and +1/+1. You're fine with board wipes happening. If Yedora goes with everyone else, that's perfectly fine. What isn't fine is them board wiping and in response blowing up your commander. If you really want to, you can splurge your money on some cards that are more expensive but can give your permanents indestructible or can give your permanents hexproof. That way you don't have to worry about all your lands going away at once. But from what I can tell, for the most part, it's not going to last long enough for them to be able to hurt you that personally. Usually you're going to be able to kill them or get like infinite life. And so like you're going to be sitting with too much of a pretty life total for anyone to actually make a meaningful difference to you and your life. If you want the full deck list, go ahead and check out the link in the description below. That'll take you to my Mox field. You can follow me there. I'll be releasing decks the moment I usually release a video. Sometimes I'll have non-budget decks that I'll build there. Like you can find out what Regna and her demon daddy is. It's one of my strongest decks I have, but it is not budget. So you can go there. That's where you can find a lot of the power that you would seek. This deck is going to basically be a combo deck. You have no other way of really getting a lot of damage down the field. There's ways that you can buff your lands. There's ways that you can get your lands in essentially for free. There's things like Bower Passage, which makes them unblockable by flyers. But this deck really does thrive mostly on getting that one big thing in to make it the player ender, or to get that one big combo in to make it impossible for people to kill you. So go ahead and play this deck with caution and make sure that people know that sometimes it can literally win out of nowhere. You don't want to have your pod kind of freak out because you didn't tell them and now the game's over and everybody just watched you have fun shuffling your deck. Be very honest with it. But for a lot of people, this is the type of deck that you want to see. And trust me, this does it really well. And for just $30, there's no reason to not buy it and try it out. So go ahead and check that link. And additional side note, in a month or here soon, I will be at the MagicCon? I'll be at MagicCon Chicago. Me and my steward. He just goes, if you find me at MagicCon Chicago, I'll give you a key from a keyboard and just say hi. I'll say hi, even if I'm in the game. I thrive on attention. Anyway, come over to MagicCon Chicago. I'll be on the floor. I'm not actually going to be like, you know, invited. I'm not that famous. Just find me, say hi. If you want to get a game in, let me know and I'll quit whatever game I'm in immediately. Immediately. You know this now. Immediately. Yeah. No, that's really it. Honestly, check out this video. It's a good video. I know that you like me because you're here now for some reason. So you can check out this video and it'll give you video things that you like. Probably. I don't know. This is what they think you'll like. Go for it. Have fun. Why are you here? Click it now. Click it!